stories for bedtime,
and car time, and playtime,
and anytime you want to hear how much Jesus loves you in all this world.
Even little birds.
Hi, this is Pastor Sarah at St. Paul Lutheran Church in Davenport, Iowa. Welcome to this podcast where we tell stories told just for kids and kids at heart. Every week we tell a story about Jesus from the Bible. And for this podcast, you need to bring your imagination. We are going to imagine that there was a little bird in all those stories, a little bird who was friends with Jesus, a little bird who saw all the stuff that Jesus did and heard all the things that Jesus said. Well, hi, podcast friends. Well, this week I got a little cut, this tiny ouchie right on the tip of my finger on my right hand. Have you ever had a cut like that? It's little, but it hurts, and it's on the hand I use for everything. I don't know how it happened, but it was bleeding, and yesterday I tried to put a Band-Aid on it. And I tried once, but because I had to do it with one hand and my left hand doesn't work quite as well as my right hand, all the sticky parts of the Band-Aid got stuck to all the other sticky parts, and I just couldn't get it to work. I was frustrated and my finger hurt. But then my son, who is 8 years old, he saw me and he offered to help. He got out a Band-Aid and gently put it on my finger for me because I couldn't do it myself. And then, do you know what he did? He gave my little Band-Aided finger a sweet little kiss, just like I sometimes do when he has an ouchie. And you know what? It just made everything feel better. Well, today we're going to hear Jesus tell a story about someone else who helped someone who was hurting. So here it is, Season 2, Episode 9.
Little Bird and Jesus tell the story of the Good Samaritan.
So, Jesus and his friends and our favorite little sparrow were out doing what they did a lot of the time. Can you guess what it was they were doing? What does it seem like they are always doing? Well, if you guess that they were out on the road while Jesus taught and healed and loved people, then you guessed right, because that is exactly what they were doing on this particular day. They had been out on the road, and Jesus had been teaching, and someone in the crowd raised his hand, stood up, and shouted, "Jesus, I have a question for you." Little Bird was up in a tree branch nearby, and she noticed him. She had seen that man before, and she knew he was really smart about religious stuff. He knew every bit of the Bible. She was surprised that he had a question, because he seemed like someone who usually had all the answers. The man asked Jesus, "What must I do to live forever in God's love?" Jesus said to him, "You are a smart man who knows much about God. What do the rules of God say?" Little Bird smiled to herself. Jesus loved to answer a question with another question. The man said, "Well, the commandments, the ways of the Bible say to love God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength and all your mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself." Jesus said, "Well, there you go. Do that and you will live now and forever in God's love." But the man said, "Okay, but who is my neighbor?" Then Jesus wrinkled his eyebrows and looked up like he was thinking. Little Bird knew what was going to happen next. Jesus was going to tell a story, a parable. Jesus said, "A man was traveling on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho." Little Bird shuddered in fear. That was a dangerous road. She didn't ever want to travel that busy road. Jesus continued. And while they were going, some robbers jumped out from behind a rock and surprised the man. They hit him and kicked him, and after they hurt him, they stole all of his money and all of his stuff and ran away. The man was left on the side of the road, lying there in pain. He was too hurt to get up, so he just moaned, crying, hoping someone would see him and stop to help. Soon he noticed a priest, one of the religious leaders, walking down the road toward him. "What luck!" he thought. "Surely this holy man will stop to help me." But instead, the priest walked right past the injured man. The man shouted for help, but the priest just crossed over to the other side of the road and pretended not to see him or hear him, and walked right on by. Then again, a little while later, another religious leader, sort of like that smart man in the crowd, he was walking down the road. And again, the injured man thought, "I am so lucky. This guy is going to help me for sure. He knows it's the right thing to do." But again, the man crossed the road to get as far from the injured man as he could. The man walked right past him, ignoring the injured man's cries for help. The man was so discouraged and hurt and sad. But then he saw another person coming down the road riding a donkey. At first he was so hopeful, but as that other man got closer, the injured man saw that it was a Samaritan, and his heart sank. "Oh no," the man thought. "This Samaritan will never help me. We're enemies." He didn't even cry for help. He knew it would be pointless. Well, Little Bird had heard about Samaritans. In their day, the Samaritans and Jewish people didn't get along. They fought over all kinds of things and didn't talk to each other or do anything else together, much less help each other. Jesus continued his story. Well, do you know what? That Samaritan saw the hurt man, and he immediately jumped off his donkey and rushed over to him. "Are you alive?" he asked. And when the man groaned, he said, "Oh, thank God you are alive. Show me where it hurts." He took his jug of water and gave some for him to drink, and then used it to clean his cuts. He wrapped bandages around him and used all of his strength to lift that man right up on his donkey. And then the Samaritan took him to a local inn, where he got a room for him and some food. The Samaritan stayed with the injured man all day, and when he left, he paid the innkeeper to let him stay and take care of him. That kind Samaritan did everything he could to make sure the man got better. So, Jesus continued, which of these people was a neighbor to the man who was robbed and hurt? Little Bird thought this was obvious, and the smart man in the crowd must have too, because he quickly answered, "The man who stopped for help, the one who showed him kindness." Jesus smiled and said to the man, "Then go and do the same." The man nodded. Such an easy answer, something that anyone can understand, but a whole lot harder to do. Little Bird thought this was an easy answer, but a hard one too. But even she could stop and help. She could show kindness too. And she knew that this was the way to live in God's love, not just someday, but right now. And so that day, Little Bird decided that whenever she could, she would be like that Samaritan and show kindness to others, especially the ones who most needed it. Hi, podcast friends. I think this story would be a fun one to act out with your family. Choose some parts and really lean into these characters. Except for maybe the robber part. You don't want to get too carried away with that one. Or maybe you could act the story out with your stuffies as various roles. What do you think it would feel like to be the injured man? Why do you think the religious leaders didn't stop to help? What did you learn about being a neighbor? This week, my challenge to you is to be like that Samaritan. Keep your eyes open for people who might need a friend. Maybe they are hurt and need some help, or maybe they're alone and need some company, or maybe they just need a friend to play with. Whatever it is, try to be a good neighbor this week, just like that Samaritan. Well, friends, it's always so fun to spend this time with you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Little Bird and Jesus.
Now flap your little wings. Sing a little song.
And remember that to Jesus,
You will always belong.
Thanks for listening to Little Bird and Jesus, a podcast of St. Paul Lutheran Church in Davenport, Iowa. For more information on St. Paul, visit us at stpaulqc.org.